Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing Kotna Gamer in a 15+10 game on leechess.org. Okay, my opponent opens with d4. Let's play g6. Feeling flanky again today. All right, my opponent takes the center. Let's play bishop g7. Now, I can play this system with either c6 or d6. I think I'm going to play it with c6, looking for d5. And f3, interesting. I feel like I faced this recently in a game. Don't remember exactly where. Let's continue with d5. Hope you guys are having a good weekend. Bishop e3, usually indicating that white wants to play queen to d2, and then castle long, maybe an eventual bishop h6. So, thinking of a couple different ways to react to this. I'm even considering a weird move like b5 to try to advance b4 and disrupt white's plans a little bit. I could just develop knight f6, for instance. Encourage white to play e5, although I'm not sure about my knight arrangement after that. I could take here. Taking and then playing e5 is an intriguing way to play this position. May not be so bad. Even knight f6. I give white two pawns side by side, but I feel like I'm going to attack them very quickly, so just pausing for a moment to consider this. Take, e5. Yeah, I fall a bit behind in development, but I actually really like the look of that. I'm going to do it. Let's play it. Opens the queen up as well, so queen h4 check is not a threat immediately because this pawn is defended. But I think counterattacking in the center is justified here. If d5, I think I'm going to at that point play knight f6 and just try to get castled. Knight g4 will be a little bit annoying for white. I thought briefly about playing a 15+15 game, but when I was on Lichess using the slider to indicate the time control, as I dragged it over to the 15-second mark, I realized that that would be classical ratings rather than rapid ratings. So you can see that this is a rated rapid game. And I've apparently never played a classical game on Lichess, so I was 1500 rated. So I thought, maybe wait till I'm established. Maybe I'll play some games on my own. Or not. I'll probably just record them. But okay, so white captures. And now I think trading queens is going to be the best thing to do. And interestingly, I don't have to take the pawn back immediately, although I may want to. Anything else to consider here? Not really. I think trading the queens is justified. And just a consistent continuation. It'd be nice if I was able to take this pawn with a knight. So knight d7 takes. But let's say white plays rook takes d1. Okay, knight takes d1. I wasn't expecting that. I don't see why white would play that over rook takes d1. So I can try knight d7, but white may play e6, just try to offload that pawn and isolate my e-pawn. Knight d7, e6, f takes e6. I mean, I'm sure I'm doing okay there. Bishop c4, knight e5, but this is like the more sound structural move. Yeah, let's just play bishop takes e5. I think especially now that white is captured with the knight, there's no reason to do anything different. Okay, we'll just pull this back. And with the queens traded like this, development doesn't matter as much. So you can see white is up 2 tempi in development, but in return, I have a better structure, and it's going to be hard for white to outright attack my king. So here, I'm thinking about knight f6. Develop and hit this. Knight f6, if knight g5, I can probably castle to safety pretty easily. Then maybe play h6 coming up. Maybe knight f6, knight g5, castles is something I have to be concerned about, because then if I play h6, there's knight takes f7, rook takes f7, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, e5. And my knight on f6 will be pinned at the end of that line, actually. So, yeah, perhaps this isn't so easy to parry. What other moves can I consider here? Knight d7? Knight d7 looks decent. That way, if knight g5, I can play knight e5, attacking the bishop and simultaneously defending f7. I kind of like that. It blocks my light square bishop, but I feel like this knight is bound for somewhere more useful anyways. White may castle short. I do have to be aware of that the rook is coming into the action here. I think knight d7 is fine. And on castle short, I'm even thinking about playing knight h6. As weird as that seems. One other benefit of knight d7 is it stops bishop c5 if white ever hopes to put the bishop there to disrupt my castling kingside. So let's see how white responds. He does castle kingside. So, yeah, knight h6 seems consistent. Knight g4 is a bit annoying. I might even play f6 and put the knight on f7. I could also just play h6. Maybe h6 is the best way to deal with this knight g5 idea. There are sacrificial ideas too, so have to be heads up about that too. Also, I'm saying I should even pay attention to knight f6 here. Because on knight g5, again I have knight e5. But there's a capture on f7 possible, like bishop takes f7, trades, and then that pesky e5 move at the end of the line. Yeah, I don't like lines where e5 gets played at the end. So I'm leaning towards knight h6 here. Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that. Knight b6 is another way to play this, but I think white will just play bishop b3 if I do that. Not so convinced by that. So I think it's between knight h6 or pawn h6. Pawn h6. Is there any way I can take advantage of this f7 weakness? Bishop takes f7, king takes, knight e5, king e8, knight takes g6, rook h7. Looks awkward, but I'm going to unwind there, and white only has 2 pawns for the piece. That should be good. Oh, man. I'm sorry, guys. I've been blocking my clock here the whole time. Let me fix that. That's my ultimate nightmare, to play an entire game like that. It's happened before. Okay, hopefully that's better. I do run test recordings for these things, but sometimes the layout's a little bit different when you play a game. Okay. So h6 or knight h6. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this moment, but I feel like once I get coordinated and I figure out the best setup, my subsequent moves should be easier. That's my rationale for spending time here. Because if I play h6, that probably means I'm going to develop the knight through e7. I'm more so looking to do that and then maybe castle. Just the one thing that gives me pause about knight h6 is that knight's going to be out of the game for a while. If white even just plays h3, it's going to be tough to get that piece back in. So, you know what? It seems like I'm oscillating a little bit between ideas, but I think I am going to go with this move. Stop knight g5, and if this knight moves, I'm going to play knight e5. There's some interesting lines, like let's say white plays knight h4 here and attacks f7 that way. Knight e5, maybe bishop d4. So if knight takes c4, bishop takes g7. On knight h4, I guess I can even play knight f6, though. So that's another option if that knight moves, because then I'll be hitting the pawn, and e5 is not possible because I can just play knight takes e5. So, yeah, I guess it's possible I may play knight f6 still, even though I was speaking more so in terms of knight e7. This is one thing if you play flank openings, especially as black. You are ceding the center. Some may consider them to be dubious. I think they're quite interesting. But I have noticed when I play flank openings, I personally face much bigger decisions early on in the opening. And I feel the stakes are a bit higher than classical openings where you're fighting for the center with your pawns. So if you're going to play in very hypermodern style like this, controlling the center from a distance with your pieces, you may face some tougher decisions in the opening. That's why, in general, for beginning players, I wouldn't recommend too many flank openings, hypermodern openings. I think you should stick to classical principles, try to control the center with those pawns rather than your pieces. But as you get better and better, you can introduce lines like this into your repertoire. Usually in a situation like this, if you're white, you want to continue playing actively because he needs to compensate for the fact that he has this isolated pawn. Okay, now this is an interesting move. Trying to cramp me a little bit. Also maybe with the idea of e6. If I take this pawn, then knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, I lose f7 with check. I could take this way, but then there's bishop takes f7, switching up the move order. Since bishop takes, knight takes would be fine for me. With the bishop on c4 attacked and f7 defended. So I'm thinking about moving this guy. Maybe knight b6 is what I should do now. Switch it up a little bit. Knight b6. If bishop takes, pawn takes, I think that's all right. If the knight moves, I feel like bishop e6 is okay. Actually, I'm not sure about that. Have to exercise some caution here. Well, I could even play knight e7 and just let white play e6, and then after takes, bishop takes, maybe just knight f6 then. Actually, that might be the best way to play it. Yeah, maybe that's not half bad. I'm not sure about knight b6. Knight b6, bishop b3. Maybe I could play knight d5 or something, but somehow that position makes me a little nervous. And also knight b6, bishop takes b6, pawn takes. Yeah, then knight d4, and he's on f7. Just not quite sure how bishop takes e5 would pan out there. Bishop takes e5, bishop takes f7 check. King e7. Let's say knight back to f3. If I take his bishop, he takes e5. A lot of stuff going on there. Knight e7, on the other hand, I think there's a very good chance white's just going to do this. And then take. And I think I can move my knight. Let's say knight f6, as I was indicating. Bishop takes c8, rook takes c8. That feels very safe for me. Sorry about that loud noise. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. Just double checking to see if there's any sort of moves white can play that are going to mess me up. I don't think so. Let's do it. Just developing. Bishop f7, king f7, knight g5. Doesn't look like anything. I can play king e8. If knight e6, bishop takes e5, and I save my bishop, and I'm guarding against knight c7 check. So I think there's a very good chance white's going to play e6. And I have to take it, so I'm just going to pre-move that. One thing that is helping me here is that white still has that knight on d1, so he can't easily bring his queenside rook into the game. So even though I'm allowing e6 and the lines in front of my king are getting a bit open, it's not so simple for white to land a truly annoying blow here. It takes a couple moves. Maybe one thing I have to consider, though, after e6, pawn takes, bishop takes, If I play knight f6 and then white takes on c8, maybe I should take with the knight instead of the rook, because if I take with the rook, the pawn on a7 could hang. Bishop takes a7. Yeah, I may want to take with the knight. It allows knight e5, but I feel like knight e5 I can maybe meet with knight d5. Well, knight d5, knight takes g6 though. And white's knight on d1 is defending the bishop on e3. Okay, it'll be interesting. After e6, pawn takes e6, bishop takes e6, I also may play something like rook f8 if I want to forego castling. Leave the king in the center. Looks a little bit risky. Also, another thought that occurred to me is I can play knight b6 instead of knight f6. Maybe I don't need to cover the f-file. Maybe that's the better thing to do. e6, pawn takes, bishop takes. Yeah, maybe knight b6 now. Because if I could castle queenside, that would be nice. Although I would intend to take with a rook then, I guess is what I should say. And I can still castle kingside. Yeah, knight b6 just may be the way to go here. Also stops any knight e5 business. Okay. Knight e5, another option. I guess I don't like knight e5 as much because it simplifies things. So yeah, I'm going to play knight b6. And I'll pre-move the capture with the rook. I wonder if bishop takes c8, rook takes c8, a4 is something to worry about. a4 looking to play a5. I guess I can always go back to a8 with my rook if I want to. Could be a little irritating, though. Take, a4. And then if I castle a5, knight gets driven away, and then bishop takes a7. I mean, I could take with a knight here. It just feels a little more awkward to put the knight on the back rank like that. If I were to take with knight, I'd probably take with this one. Yeah, I'm going to take with the rook all the same. And on a4, maybe c5 is how I should react. Just noticing this now, but the rook helping the c-pawn advance. Also controls d4 a little bit better. Blocks the bishop. I give up some control of d5, but I feel a bit better now that I've seen that resource. This seems to be an acceptable position for me, but it's been a little touch and go. I haven't felt like I truly have my bearings in this game yet. Happens sometimes. Okay, bishop c5. I think default thing to do would be to attack this bishop. He's trying to prevent me from castling since I lose the knight. So knight d7 or knight a4 come to mind. Maybe knight d7. If bishop takes a7, then b6 is a classic way to try to trap a piece. Specifically a bishop there. So I'm kind of liking that. Although he may go to d6, but then knight f5. And if rook e1, king f7, I should be good there. My pieces are coordinating fast. And if knight d7, bishop a3, I can then play c5 if I want. Really try to block that bishop out of the game. And again, I feel like white's going to have to burn a move getting that knight into the game. What about simply knight d7, bishop takes e7, king takes knight h4? I guess I have a check here and then rook g8 to defend that pawn, but white may be looking to do something straightforward like that. Yeah, bishop c5 is a little annoying. Could play g5 if I want to stop knight h4, but I don't like the look of that. Maybe rook f8. Rook f8, rook e1, though. I'm going to be somewhat tied down. Bishop f6. What about bishop f6? Bishop f6, preparing to castle. I don't like having to rely on the bishop to defend the knight, though. Okay, so knight d7 was my original intent here, but I haven't figured out exactly how to respond to this. Maybe just knight e5. Just stick the knight in the center of the board. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Time management not great here for me. But my opponent's playing well, so I give him credit. He's playing good moves, moves that keep the pressure on. Still, I think the position is probably pretty balanced. I'll be rolling with my king in the center if he takes, but again, the queens are off the board. If I can get the rooks to the center, I do have a nice dark square bishop. So there's everything to play for here. Again, bishop takes a7, b6. I don't think white should entertain that. I don't see a way white can get the bishop out. I'm threatening rook a8 or even rook c7. Okay, I would expect knight h4. White seems to be aware of how to put pressure on. Yep. So knight e5 was going to be my answer to that. Knight e5, and then probably try to swap a pair of rooks, maybe down the f-file if I get a chance, or get my king to safety, one of the two. Any other moves to consider here? I don't like bishop d4 check and rook g8. That just feels too passive. So yeah, I think knight e5 is the way to go. I can try to follow with bishop f6 if I want to. Maybe hit this knight. Definitely don't want to play g5, though, because that allows the knight into f5. Of course, I didn't want to play g5 last move either. Knight f5 or knight g6. Yeah, see, this is where white would really like to have this rook come to e1. I think this rook being on the f-file is pretty helpful for white. Stops my king from running this way. But yeah, this is nice that I can bank on white having to burn a bit of time that way. Okay, so knight e3. Now, candidates here. I would say bishop f6 or rook to f8, one of the two rooks. And that's probably about it. Like maybe rook c to e8 and then try to run the king towards the queen side. I'm leaning towards bishop f6. That's the move that looks most promising to me. Just off the top of my head. Try to force this knight back. Take. Probably can't justify taking there. Maybe this rook over, though. This knight's not really threatening anything, right? Like, I'm controlling the forward momentum for this knight. Maybe rook here. I mean, knight f5 is actually possible for white after that. Or even knight takes g6, knight takes g6, then knight f5. Feels like the two minor pieces against the rook should favor me, though. Well, I don't know. Position's kind of open. That's a tough one. That's a tough call. Let's play this. See what happens. I'll be very curious if white does this or this. Probably if white's going to play that way and try to get the two minors, or rather, the rook and the pawn against the two minors, they should play knight takes g6 first. Knight takes g6, knight takes g6, knight f5. But I can play rook takes f5, bishop takes d4. If rook b1, there's bishop d4 check in between move, and then I'll have a chance to defend this. So most likely after bishop takes b2, white would give a check on e1. Let's say king d6 then. I am controlling f6 from a distance with my bishop. I feel like I should be better there, but it's kind of sharp. My king is open. Interesting moment. White may just swap down here. Rook takes f8, rook takes f8, rook f1. But given the way white's been playing this game, they've been going for the consistently sharp decisions. So I would doubt that white does that. Yeah, I would bet they do something forcing, like one of the moves I was describing with the knight jumping in, or maybe rook e1. But rook e1, my idea is to play king f7 and take refuge on the king side. And with this knight on e5, I don't think I have a whole lot to worry about there. This other permutation of the knight sacrifice, let's say knight e, f5 check, pawn takes f5, knight takes f5. I could just take with the rook directly, or I could move my king. I could play, for instance, king f7. King f7, there is knight d6, but I get to walk my king over. See, that situation I feel like I should be doing really well, because knight takes c8, rook takes c8. It's the same imbalance. So two minors against rook and pawn, but the knight on e5 is a monster in that situation. It's outposted very nicely, backed up by the bishop. I like posing a decision like this to white too, given the time difference. So white is thinking more than they have on previous moves here, and given that I'm down a few minutes, that may allow me to bring it a little bit closer on the clocks. And by the way, if white takes, I could take with the king as well. And even if I do take with the rook and rook f1, I guess trading rooks isn't strictly forced, although I could play rook d8 there maybe. White might just play rook d1 though. If I were white, I'm not sure what I would do here, to be honest. I somehow don't think I would go for that imbalance. I think that should favor black slightly. So again, the critical line there is knight takes g6 check, knight takes g6, knight f5. I could try to move my king, but rook takes f5 is the more direct move. Rook takes f5, bishop takes b2. If I wasn't winning that pawn, maybe I would go for that as white, but I think that's a pretty important pawn. And then rook e1 check, king d6. Okay, yeah, white's going to go for it. Interesting. Okay, so now, do I take right away or play a king move? Not sure about the king moves. They look a little awkward. And I think given the time situation and the fact that I've already analyzed this line, I think I should do this. And then take. So take rook e1, king d6. What about something like rook f7 at that point? Rook f7. Maybe bishop check and then rook c7? I don't know though. Maybe I shouldn't risk that. Take, check, king d6, rook f7 is actually kind of annoying. Attacking on the 7th rank. I fear for my h6 pawn. Nah, I'm still kind of defending from a distance, though, in a weird way. Like b5, this is not possible. Man, what a weird position. All right, let's just try it. I do feel like this is critical. Sorry for that. I keep getting these Windows notifications or something, and I have no idea how to turn them off. I haven't bothered to Google it. Okay, so a classic imbalance. A rook against two minor pieces. It was previously a rook and pawn, but now it's equal pawns. But white's going to get some activity, so I'm going to go here. Looks precarious, but I do have that square covered. That's very important. And if check here, I'll just play king over. I would like to retain this h-pawn, though, for sure. So rook f7 is the move that worries me the most here. But I think b5 is actually a pretty sufficient reply, because rook takes a7, bishop d4. And again, if ever this rook goes to b1, I have bishop d4 check. The bishop d4 check resource is very important. If white attacks this pawn directly, I can, at minimum, play rook h8 or bishop g7. And look for me to really use these queenside pawns aggressively in an endgame here. Check. Okay. So king e6, I think, is what I should play. Yeah, if king c7, rook check, I don't like that. White might get doubled on the 7th rank or something, so let's play king e6. But now I've bought a little bit of time. I'm attacking white's rook. White can't reach the 7th rank. I would predict white plays rook h5, and then I can back this bishop off if I want. And I might even put that knight on e5, which I was expressing was such a nice square if I can get it there. So yeah, I think just pull the bishop back. And if I get checked, knight e5, or maybe even move the king over to the king side. But leaning towards knight e5. Okay, now I'm really starting to like my position. Because when you have the two rooks like that, it's pretty important that you're coordinating them or constantly using them to create threats. Otherwise, the two minors, and especially in conjunction with the rook and not even being down any pawns, I should be able to retake the initiative sooner or later. Okay, so lots of possible moves here. b5, c5, knight e5. Maybe start with knight e5. Yeah, just centralize. I think good move to play with time pressure coming up too. Controls a lot of territory, stops g4. Stops rook d3 if white's looking to double that way. If white swings the rook over and attacks my pawns, I feel like that should just help me. I can play b5 here. b5, rook a3, maybe bishop f8 is a nifty move then. Rook takes a7 again, this bishop c5 move. Let's do it. Transfer the bishop to this square. It's interesting. Any sneakier way I can do this? Be nice to play knight c4 here, but white just takes. So yeah, let's do this. I think white will probably put the rook here. Back over there. But then it's like I got the b5 move in for free. My bishop can always go back to g7 and cover these 2 points if necessary. Not exactly sure what I'm going to do with this rook yet, but I will find a use for it. Yeah, so white does go there. Rook g6 is not a threat. Maybe I should check and then try to play rook f8 and play for activity. Kind of like the look of that. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Check, play for activity. Try to get a rook on the second rank if possible. This pawn should be fine. I can always defend it with rook f6, or if rook h3, maybe knight g4 is decent. Yeah, this looks like the way to coordinate. Rook c3 is not a problem. I can just move the bishop. Okay, so white defends, but now how about this? Kind of nice for me that h3 blocks rook h3. So I feel like this h-pawn is now extremely safe. Yeah, let's invade. Time pressure coming up here. Already in time pressure, but I feel pretty good. Where to put the bishop? Bishop b4 is the most direct move here. Bishop b4 and then force the rook to move again. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. If here, probably just bishop a5. Strangely. Make white defend this pawn again, but deny rook c3. Could also play pawn a5. But pawn a5, white plays a3. So I think I like bishop here a little bit more. Yeah. Bishop can still come back and support the knight if necessary, but threat for the moment. Also still controlling e1. a4. Was not expecting that move. Looks kind of desperate though. I think b4 is a good reply here. Yeah, I'm not going to think too hard about that one. If I take rook a3, white gets a little bit of activity, my pawns get broken up. I think b4 is quite strong. I keep this as a threat. c5, c4 now becomes a very big threat. The a pawn's pretty useless. The rook stands poorly on b3. If one of white's rooks gets tied down to the defense of the pawn, that's trouble. And another major reason to play this, if c4 or c3 is played, I can just take c4, take en passant. Or even take with the knight, but... I guess I did block this, though, but I don't think that should be a big deal. I think I can just take here, and if rook e3, bishop c7, everything's defended. Okay, so, yeah, probably just capture. If captures, I'm just looking briefly at this. But my connected pawns are so strong. Yeah, that's got to be winning. Okay, bishop back. Defend. These pawns are ready to roll. Rook g3 is about the only active thing white can do here, but I think it's too little too late. Rook g3, I can play bishop d6. Okay, white plays g4, but yeah, it looks very slow. Rook c3 even looks to trade more. Might be kind of like a nice clinical way to play this, but probably unnecessary. I think just push. Yeah, let's get those pawns connected. White's going with the h-pawn. No problem. Let's take. Okay, now do I play king f5? Or just wait for g6 to be played and then come here? Probably king f5. It's kind of nice that white doesn't have this. Yeah, let's go king f5. Check. Seems like I can just take this. Any tricks I'm missing here? Rook g3, knight g4 looks decisive. I'm hitting the rook then. Yeah, it should be good. Rook g1, I just keep coming in with the king. Or knight g4. And again, you can see the knight just helps out a lot. Even with things like stopping rook f7. It's proved to be a pretty valuable piece in the center of the board. Centralize those knights. Okay, rook f8. Okay, yeah. I see maybe white's going to try to check from g3 after that move. Let's play this, just to be safe. Just to have my rook able to participate in stopping some of these checks. Trade is fine. I'm already up so much material. I don't mind a trade. Those pawns are so strong. So white can't really trade rooks here. So I think white will back his rook off. But then it's a little harder for him to attack me. Maybe like knight g4 now. Yeah, let's do that. Lots of attacking ideas in mind. Rook h3. And if king g2, rook h2. White can check here, but I think I just move my king forward. And yeah, the knight helping to defend is very, very nice. Stops rook f2. Okay. Let's play bishop e5. Further protection of the king. a7 is hanging, but not too worried about that. And now I think I'm just going to push this. Let's check. Check again. King f3, rook f2. So if the king gets forced to the back rank, b2. And then with rook b1 and a queen threat, among other things, probably. There might be a mate as well. King here, check. I have to play here. It's very close to mate as well, but I think I'll just play b2 for simplicity's sake. King h3, rook h2, by the way. Yeah, this is checkmate. Okay. Sharp game. Very sharp game. What are my impressions of this game? I don't think I played the opening that well. My time management was poor the first half of the game. But I think I made some good decisions down the stretch. And my opponent was consistently playing the sharp move and the move that put quite a bit of pressure on my position. But I think that decision to play knight takes g6 was either unjustified or white didn't follow it up vigorously enough. So if we go back to that, I think if white's going to go in for this continuation, right here they need a better move. So maybe rook f7 in this position. That was the move that had me a bit more concerned. I was going to play b5 against that and indirectly defend this pawn, but it looks more threatening. White never quite got that rook coordination that they needed. And I gradually made progress. I had that centralized knight. I think once I get my rook in the game, this is winning for black. So let's go to the analysis board. I might adjust my window 1 second. Oh, I disappeared. Great. Now you guys are staring at a black screen. 1 second, guys. This is the bane of any chess streamer's existence. Board window resizing. So let me just get this up again. Okay, there we go. There's not a great place for me to put my webcam, though. Let me try again. One more time. This should be better. A little ASMR for you guys in the meantime. Okay, webcam. Webcam is widescreen. I don't like that. Too much wasted space. Let's place John over here somewhere. Then you guys can see the inaccuracies, mistakes, blunders. Okay, so according to the computer, white has 11 inaccuracies, 4 mistakes, 0 blunders, 38 average centi-pawn loss. I had 3 inaccuracies, 1 mistake, 0 blunders, 16 average centi-pawn loss. From my perspective, I'm pretty happy about that, given how sharp the game was. But I do think I was in some trouble out of the opening. I see that the computer analysis has already been done here. Guess that's one thing. If I'm not clicking over to that window, because as you guys know, I like to analyze my games first without the help of the engine. But I'll try to ignore that as I go through this. But someone already clicked computer analysis on this game, so that's why it's there. Just initial impressions. I don't know about this e5 move, this e5 decision. I wasn't quite sure how to combat this f3 approach against c6 and d5. I feel like I faced this before and maybe done something similar, but given the game continuation, I'm not completely convinced. White seems to get a pretty big lead in development. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check some of these decisions like h6. Also right around here, if there was a better way for white to play it, to maybe keep the initiative. I do think the critical phase of the game was where white was debating what to do here and ended up going with the sharp move. So, yeah, and I'll be curious what the computer thinks about this because I judge this to be good for black, but it looks scary. It looks like white's getting a bunch of activity and threats against the king, but I think black can fade it. And after this, I think black's doing really well. I think I have just a technically winning position at that point. Also, take a look here. I thought rook f7, as I just mentioned to you guys, was the better option. But yeah, mostly going to have a hard look at the opening, how I can improve this, and maybe even use the database, See what historically black has done here. I guess I could have switched up approaches against f3, maybe played d6 here or something, but d5 was consistent, and not quite sure how to handle this position because developing knight f6 kind of feels wrong when white can play e5 at any moment, or even just queen d2. Probably e5, actually. So, okay, kind of an abbreviated self-analysis. I guess I don't have too many other major questions, though. And I feel pretty good about my play. It's just this situation in the opening I'm curious about. So let me look at exactly what the computer thinks around here. Yeah, the computer gives c6 an inaccurate mark. It is playable, though. Played in a lot of games, as you'll see here. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to stuff where, you know, if you search the database and you see plenty of master games. I think I have the Masters database selected here. So if you see plenty of Masters games with a particular continuation, but the computer thinks it's dubious, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. I generally refer to human practice. So, okay, f3. How does black usually play? Yeah, f3 is pretty uncommon here. Only 7 games compared to the thousands of games to reach this position. So I guess it's no wonder that, you know, I was somewhat out of book here. So d5, bishop e3. Okay, now we've transposed into a more normal position. Probably reached via bishop e3, right? Yeah, okay, so that's a more common way of getting this. Bishop e3, d5. Yeah, and now f3. Interesting. So same position as right here. Queen b6, not even a move I thought about. That's the top move. Interesting. Go after this pawn. Queen d2, queen takes b2, some gambit continuation. Right, takes on d5 at the end. This looks kind of fun. Equal material. Okay, that's an interesting line. I thought briefly about b5. I wonder if b5 has been played. b5 has been played 10 times. Yeah, I thought this was interesting. This is sometimes an idea you can employ in this line. Takes b4 and then recapture here. There's one game that proceeded down this path. D takes e4 also played. D takes e4, f takes e4 as I played. Yeah, e5. Okay, so the line I chose in the game has been played 36 times. Looking at the stats, not terrible for black. Yeah, d takes e5. The computer does seem kind of skeptical, though. Yeah, once you get this far, the stats are not that great, but yeah, I don't really like the way the game played out. I felt like I was behind in development. Felt like I was kind of scrambling to defend everything here, even though I did have that small strategic advantage in playing against the isolated pawn. So I think, just on my brief perusal of the options here, I think I kind of like this queen b6 move. Yeah, I mean, other moves to explore too, certainly, but off the top of my head, that looks kind of interesting. Queen b6. And I guess if white just defends the pawn, is the idea that black's going to play e5, maybe after trading here, but with a pin on the d pawn towards the bishop. Let's see. So if rook b1, d takes e4, f takes e4, yeah, now e5. And black's scoring pretty well here. Yeah, this seems like a much better version. White can't take or push as they lose the bishop. I'll look into this line more, but okay. That's how you want to use the database. You know, first moment or two that you were out of book or you weren't sure what to do, look it up in the database. Select that Masters database, see what the top players are doing or have done in the past. So, okay, let's go forward a little bit. E5. I mean, I feel like here I almost have to play e5 and fight back in the center. I thought maybe I could play knight f6. It's another option. Let me toggle on Stockfish. There's some vague idea of knight g4, but even this looks decent for white. So feels like if I go this far, I gotta attack that pawn duo. Take. Yeah, I really didn't like knight takes. I felt like that was just unnecessary. I didn't understand why white played that over rook takes. Yeah, and I was already debating prior to going into this whether I would take e5 or play knight d7. Computer seems to like knight d7, but I was always thinking white was going to play e6, and then this main advantage I'm trying to angle for, which is having a better pawn structure than white, goes away. But that may be the case. Bishop takes e5, knight f3. I probably have similar problems to the game if this occurs. But in this case, this just looks like a much improved version of the game. for white because they already have the rook involved. Yeah, I could do this and further mess up white's structure, but I'm dangerously behind in development here. This looks, yeah, I mean, you can see the eval and stuff like bishop d4. I'm really weak on the dark squares here. I do not like the look of this. So rook takes d1 could have put me under pressure. To take, and I drop back here. Yep, knight d7. Okay, so this seems fine. And here I played h6. Again, the computer not thrilled about that move. It suggests knight f6 instead. What didn't I like about knight f6? Thought there was a reason. I think knight g5. Yeah. And I was talking about ideas like if knight e5, let's say. At any time, it seems to me that white could do this and then play e5. Although, again, the computer isn't really thrilled about that. It sees rook e8 here. Going after this bishop, I guess. Oh, no, it's defended. Take, just move the bishop back. Yeah. Kind of a computer-ish, definitely a computer-ish continuation. I wouldn't normally think to play this way. Yeah, knight f6, though. Direct development. Attack this, maybe knight g4. It's interesting. h6 did feel like a luxury I might not be able to afford. White played e5, and white played very forcefully. E5 makes sense. Computer also likes knight c3. Yeah, here I play knight e7, e6, trade, knight b6. Even that, it seems to be an inaccuracy. Knight e5 is better, according to the engine. Offer a trade. Doesn't this run into the same problem, though, that I was thinking that white might be able to take this at the end? Or is the idea to take with the knight? If take here, take. Yeah, take with the knight, because rook takes may just run into bishop takes a7. And note here, there's no b6 to trap the bishop. White just takes it. So knight takes c8. And I guess I'm doing all right. Like, I can still try to get the knight over here and castle. Looks a little bit better for white, though. So what's the big problem with knight b6? Computer says retain the bishop for white. Bishop to b3. Keep pieces on board. Yeah, somehow that didn't worry me so much in the game. I just thought with knight d5 available, or yeah, maybe a light square bishop move trying to castle, that I should be totally fine here. Bishop here. Okay, so if I castle, there's bishop takes b6, and this knight's hanging. Interesting. Instead, though, the natural takes is bringing me close to equality here. Rook takes c8 is correct. Yup. So let me see if a4, if I was correct, that c5 would be a good reply. Because at first sight, like, a4 looked kind of annoying with a5 and winning this pawn in mind. But yeah, c5 seems to be a good reply. Block the bishop, establish pawns on the same color as the bishop. a5, I can just jump to the center. Black's good here. So white played correctly here. Bishop c5. Looks like I played correctly as well. Knight d7. Takes, and now black is out of the woods, at least according to the engine eval. And again, if bishop takes on a7, I have this b6 move, and this bishop is not making its way back. I'm going to trap it with rook a8 next. Yeah, the engine says white should retain this bishop now, bring it back to f2. Okay. And I felt pretty good about this next phase of the game. So let's see if the engine agrees, and agrees with some of the assessments. Because, yeah, I was saying, you know, this was a pivotal moment and that white should probably not go for this. And indeed, Stockfish agrees. Knight takes g6. Almost a two-pawn swing there, two-point swing. Pawn and a half. Yeah, the other way to do this was checking with one of the knights on f5, but this also didn't seem that great. I guess this way, though, at least I don't win the pawn on b2. So, you know, if white's going to go for this, this is the better way to do it. But yeah, this looks kind of similar to the game in the sense that this knight is entrenched on this e5 square. My rook's active. I can try to get it to d2. Black should be a lot better here. Most likely it's going to go rook e1, king e6, rook f2. Something to defend the second rank. definitely would take black here, despite material equality. Usually 2 minor pieces are going to be better than a rook and a pawn. Not all the time, but usually. Especially if there's other pieces on board. The 2 minor pieces tend to have a real nice time. Okay, so doing this, and the greedy looking pawn grab is justified. Bishop takes b2, check. Yep, king d6, best move. Okay, and white played the top move according to the engine, rook d1. What about rook f7? Is my b5 move good against that? Yep, b5 is fine. This is a nice move. And again, rook takes a7's running into bishop d4. Huge resource for me. I probably would not have gone for bishop takes d4 if not for this resource. Yeah, and if white ever swings the rook over here, and I feel like I can even just play rook h8 in this position and be good. Just defend the h6 pawn. So rook d1, king e6. Yep, bishop g7. Put the knight on e5. Such a nice square for the knight. b5. Yep, bishop f8. Good. Seemed like I handled this phase of the game pretty well. Yeah, it's hard to offer white a whole lot of advice because I think the damage has already been done. Bishop b4. Engine says bishop b6 here. Yeah, that looks pretty good too. Maybe try for pawn b4 to kick the rook away from defending. But I don't see any issues with my technique. Yeah, b4, I really like this move. Just go take this. Felt like maybe I allowed white a little too much counterplay, but at no point did it feel like I was ever in serious danger going forward here. Yeah, white could try h5 just to keep that pawn a little bit further away. Seems like it should fail, though. Engine wants to play king d5 here, which is pretty bold. I'd probably play something like king f6, I think. That'd probably be my choice, just to bring the king within the square of the pawn. Also still keep an eye on e5, so that looks like a much more human solution. Instead, though, takes king f5. Yeah, white tried to sack this pawn and play for activity, but aside from my time management, it never seemed like this was that big of a problem. Just don't let white roll or checkmate you or win the knight or something. Yeah, a couple checks here. White can't step to these squares, even though white did play king h3 and got mated, but you know, king f3 runs into rook f2 with the skewer, and if the king goes to the back rank, it should be over. I can play this and this threat. I'm even controlling b8, so rook b8 trying to get behind is not going to help. If white checks from g8, I can just move my king up via one of these routes. So, okay. Yeah, really happy with how I played that second half of the game and my assessment of the knight takes g6 thing in general. I think the opening was just a little dubious on my part. I was out of book on basically move 4, 5, and I went for this. But yeah, and looking at it with the database, I think queen b6 was better. And it looks like white does have quite a bit of play that's played in the game. I think for white, you know, rook takes d1 was a clear improvement. And, you know, this position's a little subtle. Like, the computer shows some ways white can better play for the initiative. I do think, yeah, the weakness of the knight on the back rank blocking the rook does constantly show itself, so I'm not surprised the engine likes knight c3 here. I think also for white, maybe they were a little too aggressive. Like, this is a tough situation in chess. You feel like you should keep pushing forward when previously in the game it's been going well for you playing aggressively. But yeah, I think knight takes g6 was a bit too much. Although I will say black seems to be at least equal at this point, probably a little bit better. But yeah, if I were white, I think I'd try to maybe play something like this. No, yeah, the computer gives this to be a pretty favorable position for black. King d6, and I guess try to escape this way. So interesting game. Thanks to Kotna Gamer for the interesting fight here. Sorry about that clock issue at the beginning, by the way. My face blocking the clock. Try to avoid that in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed this game. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'll be back again soon with another video. Bye, guys.